It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
Common Sense on Mutual Funds by John Bogle. Okay, that is the fourth book in my list. I did this a couple of weeks ago and forgot to mention it, and so I redid it in the last episode, telling you my 4 books, and again, I forgot to mention the name of the fourth book. So this way, I started the very podcast with the title, Common Sense on Mutual Funds. That is book 4 of 4. The other 3 you're going to have to go back and listen to, because I don't want to repeat that all again. So that's the fourth book. Again, my apologies for fucking that up. We have some really fun stuff today. We have a nice conversation with the author of the Annabelle and Aiden book series. We actually talked to him, JR, last year, but there's a brand new book coming, and he's doing a fundraiser for it. And we're going to talk all about that during the interview. And, of course, the patrons will get first crack at this ability to contribute to make sure that this book is a success. The book is called Oh My Gods, and it is gorgeous and well written. It's about the history of gods in a children's book. So I think you're going to love it. And I think this is going to be out in time for Christmas. You're going to buy the shit out of this book, so you might as well sign up for one of the donation levels and get some signed copies or the other books in the series, whatever. Do something fun with that. Also in this episode, I've got 2 kind of weird investing skeptically things. The first one is how to not pick a mutual fund. And in that, I mentioned several times that I read a book, and there I intended to not mention the book because I didn't find it worthy of mentioning, because if I give you 40 book recommendations, how do you know which books to read? That's why I only give you generally 4, unless I have an author on and we talk about their book. But within that book, there was a fund that was recommended, and the book was old enough that I was like, well, they recommended this one fund for all these great reasons. How did it go? How did it work going forward? So I'm talking about information and the value of the 5-star system from Morningstar, the value of picking good funds that have good track records, and how it just doesn't work. And then after that, I do actually have a super shitty fund from the company called Standpoint, where I got an email from somebody who's, their job is to talk to advisors and get us to recommend this shit. I get, oh my God, the amount of emails I get with this type of stuff. And it struck me funny because, and you'll hear it in this segment, that they made the effort to actually know a little bit about me and customize the email, which I appreciated, that it was something worthy of being read. But what they had to recommend was still so awful. And you'll hear all about that. So we've got two different investing skeptically-ish segments. One about how the history of a mutual fund may not actually help you going forward. And this is something that does happen to me on a regular basis today. Someone will call me and go, hey, Phil, the market's made 15% per year for the last 10 years, but this fund's made 25% per year for the last 10 years. Should I buy it? I don't know. What's it going to do next? And one of the things that I found out is that looking at this, and maybe I'll do a whole segment on a basket of funds that did really well and then they didn't. The past performance does not indicate future results. Things change. So picking funds out of a magazine that has the best 1, 3, 5, 10-year performance, completely worthless. Absolutely worthless. You can get the data, you can look at the data, you can analyze the data, you can make choices on the data, but that would be a mistake because it doesn't fucking work. And that's a real buzzkill because you'd like to find some way that works. And I've decided that the only way that works is to be in all these different index funds, and they're collectively going to match the market, but you can rebalance and tweak and overbalance and counterbalance and do some fine things. And of course, if you're adding money, you add to the ones that are lagging. And if you're taking out money, you take money out of the ones that are winning, and you create a systemic approach to buying low and selling high. We all know that's a wise thing to do. Anyway, enough of the babble. We're going to take a quick little break, and we're going to hear 2 different segments on funds and how to not pick them, or how to not promote them, I guess. And then we're going to talk to JR about the new book from the series, Annabelle and Aiden.
Fourth, for condemning my friend Stephen Fry for his nature, for saying you couldn't be a member of our church. You're born in sin. There's a revolting piece of casuistry that's sometimes offered on this point. Yeah, we hate the sin only. We love the sinner. Stephen is, I'm sorry to say, not quite like other girls. It's his nature. Actually, he is like other girls in that he's, when I last checked, absolutely boy mad. He's not being condemned for what he does, he's being condemned for what he is. You're a child made in the image of God. Oh, no, you're not. You're a faggot. And you can't join your church and you can't go to heaven. This is disgraceful. It's inhuman. It's obscene. And it comes from a clutch of hysterical, sinister virgins who've already betrayed their charge in the children of their own church. For shame! For shame!
You're listening to The Bill Ferguson Show.
This Investing Skeptically segment is on the Longleaf Partners Fund. I don't know that I'm going to call it a super shitty fund yet, but it got my attention because I'm currently reading yet another investment/finance book. I'm always reading these things because you never know what you're going to learn, and I love it, so that's nice. I don't really do sports ball and gambling, so or really even much drinking or smoking. So my entertainment is listening to long books about investing and hoping to learn 1 or 2 new things. And I haven't quite finished this book yet. I have an email out to the author to see if I can get him on, and I'd love like 95% of what he has to say. But there's a couple things that, I disagree with, but that's kind of a fun point. And at some point in the discussion of this book, which was published in 2005, he was giving examples of why mutual funds underperform the market by so many of the times. And he picked out an example fund of one that is well done, well managed. The management team has their own money at stake inside of the fund, so they're not just dependent on fees from new money. It's important to them intrinsically, I guess that's used right there, for themselves to make money. And this is called the Longleaf Partners Fund, and the symbol is LLPFX. And so if you go to January of 2005, this fund, compared to where it was 5 years earlier at 2000. And remember, that's when the dot-com thing all fell apart. At that point in time, the S&P 500 for 5 years had returned about minus 10, minus 11, minus 12%. Not particularly good, but this fund had returned 55%. And it had done it with relatively reasonable expenses, limited trading, more conservative assets, avoiding technology, which, was a great thing for them. And then going forward, the fund continued to do really, really well. And I'm going to go all the way to right before the stock market crash, October of 2007. Now, for the 7 years, this fund had made 93%, while the S&P 500 had only made 10. And so this is the kind of fund that if you go to a normal advisor, they're going to recommend this. And they're going to recommend something like this based on past performance. And it's a fun little game sometimes I get to play when someone sends me a statement. And of course, if you want me to review your statement, give you my thoughts on it, you may email that to me. Well, actually, what I'm going to correct there, you may email me, phil@polarisfinancialplanning.com, and please include your phone number and no other documents. After we talk on the phone, if you still want to, or if you then want to, send me a statement to look at to see your investments, I would be happy to do that. And so the mutual fund industry gets to become kind of a game. And yes, this fund did really well, so they are able to market to advisors, to either share money with the advisors or pay them a little fee for selling it, recommending it. And that's really easy to do if you can pull out some performance numbers and say, hey, over the last 7 years, when the S&P 500 has only returned 10% net, including dividends, this fund has made 93%. That's an easy sell if you just look at the historical data. But the question is, what does the historical data tell you? And is it reliable? Is it something that will help you get the right investments to do well in the future? So let's look at what happens next. Because right after this time is the 2008 market drop. And I'm going to start here from, I think I've got it set right. Yes, July of 2007. So the period it was ending in the previous couple minutes of our comparisons. And the advisor recommends this fund to you because the S&P 500 made 10 and this fund had made 80-90%. So you think that's fantastic. So how has that worked out since 2007? Well, for the big drop, let's see here, the S&P 500 fell, what numbers is 50%? Yikes. And the fund that we were just talking about fell 63%. So I don't know. I mean, you'd still be ahead if you had owned this fund for many years, but if you bought it when it was recommended in 2007, you did worse. So when the market was down 50%, give or take, the S&P 500 was down 50% from that peak. This lost more than 60%. Okay, well, it's an extreme time. So let's go all the way till today. I think this is today. Maybe today, or really close to today. This fund, the LLPFX, the Longleaf Partners Fund, which this book really liked, the book that I read really liked, it has now, since 2007 up to at least August of 2019, it's down 51%. 51%. So if you put in 100,000, you would have less than 50,000. However, the S&P 500 during that exact same time frame has gone up 91%. 91.19, 91%, 90%. So if you'd put in 100,000, you would now have 190,000. So what the advisor might have recommended, you put 100,000 in, you could have, after 12 years, you could have 50,000 or 190,000. And this is why picking mutual funds is so hard. I don't know what changed. Did the manager change? I don't know. Did their philosophy change? I don't know. Did the market and what wins and doesn't win change? I'm kind of leaning to that being the really important part, because one of the features of the Longleaf Partners Fund that was presented by the author of this book was that it stays away from technology and it buys really strongly value-oriented stocks. And so, as we've talked about that on the show lately, value stocks have not done well, and this fund has done even less well. I mean, value funds are still up since 2007 and 2008, but this fund is not. And so this would be something that, you could look at and think, based on the historical data, it's a great idea. And sometimes I play a game. I was getting to this point a moment ago, and I think I got distracted. But when someone sends me a statement, I look at the funds that they have, and often the vast majority of those funds are significantly underperforming their benchmark, or the S&P 500, or the total stock market index, or the international index. And you think to yourself, why would you buy a fund like this that has underperformed so badly? And if I look at the historical record, I can often see where many of these funds have underperformed for, let's say, 6 years. The last 6 years they've underperformed. But for 3 or 4 or 5 years before that, they overperformed. And so when I call the person that sent me the statement to look at, I might ask them, hey, did you open this account or get this advisor and get these funds about 5 or 6 years ago? And the response is often, yeah, how did you know? Because the advisor recommended those funds 5 or 6 years ago, because the 3 or 5 year or even 10-year track record said they were fantastic. But once you put money in them, they underperform. And why is that? It's not unique to those funds. What it is that the vast majority of all managed mutual funds underperform the stock market, and most of them materially underperform year after year after year. There are a few that might be due to good management, but might just be due to random chance. For a period of a couple of years, got lucky, and they beat the market. So you put your money into funds that got lucky, and since 80, 90, 95% of funds, when you look out 10, 15, 20 years, underperform the market, odds are that even though it overperformed right before you bought it, odds are it's going to underperform, and there's a good chance it's going to dramatically underperform going forward. That's why it's so hard to pick a good mutual fund based on historical data. That's why Morningstar star ratings are completely worthless, the 1 through 5 star system. I've talked about it before. An interesting point is that back in the late 90s, in the dot-com bubble, all of the dot-com mutual funds had 5 stars. Some had 4 stars, but 5 stars, because they were giving huge returns. And Morningstar is a calculation of returns versus volatility. The volatility was high, but the returns were even higher, so they're all 5-star funds. If you bought those 5-star funds and looked at them 3 or 4 years later, they're all 1-star funds, because now they sucked. Well, too late for you, because, you already lost the money. I actually went a little farther here. Let's see here. From 2009 till today, this fund, Longleaf Partners, has now made 31%, but the S&P 500 is up 300%, just going a couple more years into the future. So things can get really weird depending on your starting date and your ending date. So if you have an advisor that picks 10 or 15 funds for you to invest in, and every single one of them is beating their benchmark, maybe, just maybe, they're cherry picking funds, and that information has no value to you as in reference to future performance. If anything, it is a contrarian indicator that those funds will eventually be out of favor. Another thing that I looked up, this Longleaf Partners Fund, and you can do this yourself at morningstar.com, the return data I was pulling off of Yahoo Finance. It has a great tool that you can put stuff in there. This fund is not really even diversified. As an example here, I'm pulling up the stocks that are in it. Hang on a second. Yes, here it is. Currently, in September of 2020, this mutual fund has 14 stocks. So it's not a diversified portfolio. That they're making big bets that these stocks are going to do well. The number one holding it's 10% of the portfolio. So very, very potentially volatile, because there's only a handful of stocks. So I don't like that. And, if they happen to pick a couple of winners, they could do amazing going forward. You just have no way of knowing that. The other thing that's really funny, and something I like to look on at Morningstar, this fund currently has 21.5% of its money as cash. So Maybe they're waiting for a good deal. Maybe they'll be shown to be right in the future. I don't know, but in general, as a long-term investor, if I'm investing in a stock fund, whether it's managed or indexed, I don't want 21% of that money sitting there making basically nothing. So that's another thing you can look for is the amount of cash inside of a fund. Anyway, I'm going to wrap that up. That's a little bit of information on how to pick a mutual fund or how to not pick mutual funds. The Phil Ferguson Show is for educational purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be interpreted as personalized investment advice. Your investment should be based on your situation, and you should consult with your financial advisor before taking any action. The show may contain ads. These ads are placed into the show by the hosting company after I finish recording and editing. I have little control over the content of the ads, and you should not assume that I support their products or claims. If you choose to support the show via the new Patreon page, that support does not create an advisor-client relationship. This is another segment I like to call Super Shitty Funds. It's very interesting because, sadly, for me anyway, I get emailed multiple times a day with people that have interesting ideas, strategies for how to invest, and you've heard about them in the past. And this one is from a company called Standpoint. And I'm not going to mention the name of the person that emailed me because they were trying so hard. They really were. I mean, they're doing their job, so I get it. But they mentioned that they've actually went to my website, found my podcast, and started listening to one about Jehovah's Witnesses. And it says, quote, "Holy shit, you're ripping into all of those people prospecting you. Haha. As I'm listening, these people are with crazy marketing ideas, sound like lunatics. Good thing we're not those guys." I couldn't help myself. I am so sorry. So my new friend at Standpoint, if you listen to this, I mean this in the nicest way possible. Thank you for the kind email. Thank you for the humorous email and showing the ability to make the effort to actually learn something about what I do and what I talk about. And for that, I am truly honored. I thank you for that. But you may also want to find a new job. I dug in a little bit more into these funds, and let's see here. I found the summary prospectus on their website. The investor class, which is what you, the listener, almost anybody, probably including me, would invest in. The expense ratio on this is 2.18%. 2.18%. So you could buy an index fund with something like 0.1% or less, or you could pay 22 times more for this fund. And what's interesting is one of the ideas they have here is that they invest in everything. I mean, they aren't fucking around. They really have invested in everything. And the most amazing thing is that a large portion of what they invest in is index funds. And so in their list of current positions, they have the Schwab U.S. Broad Market ETF. Okay, it's the ETF version of an index fund, but basically the same thing. So the Schwab U.S. Broad Market ETF. And then they have the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF, which are pretty much the same thing. The iShares Core S&P 500 Total Stock Market, which the vast majority of a total stock market fund, 60 to 75, well, not 60, not now, not today, 70, 75, 80% of a total stock market fund is the S&P 500. So those three are almost the same. Spider's Portfolio S&P 500, 1,500 Composite Stock Index, which is going to be small stuff. Developed World, Schwab International, Vanguard International, iShares International. Those three are kind of redundant overlaps. So a big chunk the heart of what they have here is the same stuff. I mean, and they're really low-cost ETFs. So they're buying ETFs that have expense ratios of around 0.1 and then charging you 2% for them borrowing that. But then they do other stuff, just fantastical stuff. They own soybean, corns, sugar, wheat, cotton, rapeseed, all white sugar, all kinds of other things. And then they do currency bets, euro, Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, Japanese yen, Mexican peso, Swiss franc. So to get in any of those industries, trading commodities and currencies is brutal. Most professionals that buy these things are buying them for a reason to offset a risk exposure somewhere else. Like if you are actually producing corn on your farm and you want to buy corn futures so that you know what price you're going to sell your corn for eventually, or you can offset some of the price fluctuations. I'm not aware of them having any fields, so they're just buying futures. Fixed income, a variety of ETFs and different instruments, other commodities, crude oil, copper, nickel, refined gasoline, gas, aluminum, just a random scatter shot of whatever they could find to buy, it looks like, and charging you more than 2% for the privilege of doing this, all while making a whole lot of money. I'm guessing because somebody buys this stuff. But I just thought you'd find that amusing. Someone that wrote me a very nice and what turned out to me to be a wildly hysterically humorous email about some of the stuff that I cover, and they don't do that. But that's the super shitty fun for today.
You're listening to The Bill Ferguson Show.
Oh my gods. Yes, that's right, everybody. As promised, I have the author of the brand new book that's not even out yet, but you have your chance where you can help promote, fund, subsidize, get copies, get all kinds of rewards for this book. In a minute, I'm going to introduce, well, actually, I guess I'm going to introduce now, JR Becker. How the heck are you, sir?
Oh, man, I'm doing great, Phil. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, I am so delighted. You have 6 books already. It's from the series called Annabelle and Aiden, which we talked, I think it's been even less than a year, last summer, maybe August or something.
Something like that. I'm very bad with time these days.
I understand. I normally have like a little rule, guideline, suggestion, whatever, where I don't have people back until it's been a full year, because I always like to have new and weird different stuff. But you contacted me and said, hey, Phil, we're working on this new book. We're going to do a Kickstarter, and it's titled, Oh My Gods, A History of Belief. Tell us about it. What's going on with this book?
Oh, so I'm so grateful to be here. I'm excited about the book because it has been too long since the Annabelle and Aiden book series came out with a new title. Our first 6 titles came out in probably a three and a half year period. So it's been about 2 years, and we've been working very, very hard on a book on mythology and comparative religion for children, basically. So this book goes through all the world religions. Well, not all the world religions, because I think there's about 3,000 of them.
Yeah.
But the major ones, starting with animism and shamanism, going on to Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Hinduism, the Egyptians, Mesopotamia. We explore different cultures, and we go on, of course, to the Abrahamic religion. But this book is different than any other comparative religion book or mythology book for children, because it goes very deep into why we believe the way we do and how evolutionary psychology shaped our minds to see agency when there is none, and to see patterns where there are none, and false positives. So that's something that I read up a lot on from writers like Reza Aslan and Michael Shermer and Yuval Noah Harari, and I try to put that in the book so children could see sort of how gods are part of the human story and reflect our deepest fears and our deepest desires.
And I'm just looking at the Kickstarter, and we'll talk more about that here in a minute, but there's some sample illustrations, art, absolutely gorgeous, as previous books, but you do have a new illustrator. Is that the right word? Artist? Illustrator?
Yes. So Max Rambaldi, our usual illustrator, is very, very, very busy.
Good for her.
She's gone off to do bigger and better things. I'm sort of joking. She's still with us for many books,
right?
But she's overwhelmed at the moment. So it's completely uncanny how this happened, but I'm friends with a lot of other children's book authors in the science arena, and I saw some works by another artist named Marissa Napolitano. I probably just butchered that last name, right? Did I? Napolitano?
Napolitano. Yeah, something like that.
Napolitano.
Like I know, right?
There we go. And I was really, really excited to team up with her. And she does extremely similar art to the kind Max did in our earlier books, more realistic, a lot of light and shadow and just hazy, beautiful, ambient lighting. So yeah, we're very, very excited about this.
I'm looking at
teaming up with her.
At the cover, I'm assuming this is going to stay the cover that's on Kickstarter now, the one with Neptune on it.
Yep.
Oh my God. I don't know. Maybe you should have some of these as giant prints where people could donate and get a copy of this. It is Neptune pulling up and twisting out of the ocean, and he's got his Triton, and one side the water almost looks like it's on fire, and the other side it's all blue to contrast it. And of course, we have our characters, Annabelle and Aiden, and that's your kids' names, right?
Yes.
And they're on Tardigrade Tom. Do I remember that right?
Yes. I'm very impressed. I'm on the right podcast. I was worried, and I'm very impressed.
Yeah, we'll just pretend like I remembered that from 9 months ago. I didn't look it up. But just, I haven't even seen inside. I do have some of these illustrations that you have, and you were kind enough to send me the manuscript. I'm reading that, and you go over all these religions all around the world in a fun and playful rhyming style that makes it easy to read to a kid, when you're tucking them in. Is there a recommended age on this thing?
So most of our books, it's funny because I never wrote with an age in mind. It sounds not to be cliche, but I wrote from the heart. I just wanted to really give it over the best I could. I wasn't thinking to try to conform it to a certain age. But people tell us ages 4 to 10. I know that's a long range. Probably best for older kids, maybe 5 or 6 to 10, maybe even 6 to 12.
Well, it's one of those things that, at least with our kids, we always had great success with books that were theoretically way above their level. And you just take your time, and when you get to a new word, it's a fun thing to talk about. I just had my great-nephew over. He's about 7, and I was explaining to him Roman numerals, and he was trying to convert things from Arabic numerals. God, I can't. Arabic numerals to Roman numerals, and we were having fun with that. And I found pictures of buildings with Roman numerals on them to show him how it's used. And we talked about the Super Bowl because it has that. So you never know where this is going to play. And like you said, you cover a lot of world religions, and you start in the Wayback Machine, animism, and I don't have the fully illustrated book because it's not done yet, but I have your manuscript, subject to change, but probably pretty firm. And I kind of get to see behind the scenes because you have all these notes on what the illustration should look like. And
yeah, stop telling everyone that, Phil.
You know what you should do is you should well, maybe, I don't know, should. It's a hard word. What the fuck do I know? But have signed copies of the manuscripts available.
Ah, interesting. You're giving me all these ideas. I'm writing it down. That and large prints of the cover. Okay.
And like the cover, maybe there's only 20 prints, numbered 1 through 20. And they come, either as a print or for a little more money, it gets framed. Just saying, people.
I love these ideas. You know what? I want to hire you. Forget this podcast. You don't need this podcast. Just come with me, and you're going to be my ideas guy.
Well, it's a funny thing because if there's one thing that I guess I'm good at through time is making money, and it turns out that is a very valuable skill set to have.
Yes.
It's kind of nice. We have this one here. I'm looking at this one illustration, and it looks like a young lady is on the moon, but the moon has a chain, and it's tied to a ship in a cloud. What's going on there?
So these pictures that you're looking at are just examples of her art from her past portfolio. It's not for this book.
Oh.
I just kind of wanted to show her style and the style of art that I think she really specializes in is surrealism.
Yeah.
And I love how she breaks the laws of it's abstract art. It's I love how she combines different elements and draws something that would break the laws of physics, like someone sitting on the moon and the moon is turning into a big omelet or something like that. So those are just examples of her art.
That's nice. Now, how do people, it's not like I talk for a living, how do people find your specific Kickstarter?
So all they have to do is go to ohmygodsthebook.com. That's ohmygodsthebook.com. They might be able to go to our regular website, Annabelle and Aiden, and check out our other books. It's annabelleandaiden.com. But definitely ohmygodsthebook.com will take them right there.
And it's Gods, plural, Gods, because I screwed that up earlier. But oh my gods. And this goes live at the same time this show originally goes out. What is that, March 1st?
Yes, March 1st in the morning, 8 a.m., 9 a.m., depending on how early I get my act together.
Very nice. And so what I'm going to do for patrons is this goes out March 1st. Those are the people that are kind enough to kick in $1 or $6.66 to support my podcast. They'll have first crack at this on March 1st because some of the Kickstarter rewards you have are limited in number. So they can go through and see all these in. It's everything from, maybe you get a book or you get a signed book and it goes up, 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 up. And you can have your picture or your child's face in this book. You can get multiple books, book donations, lots and lots of things. So my patrons will get first crack at this on March 1st. And then it will go public on the 2nd because patrons get the podcast a day early. And so patrons have the first chance to go and sign up for one of these limited rewards at the Kickstarter page, ohmygodsthebook.com. And you may be able to get there through Annabelle and Aiden's website. What are the other books that you have already put out?
So we have, and I just want to say, just coming off of what you just said, that's pretty valuable because there are actually 75 spots in the book to put people's faces in the book. And a lot of people love that because they really become a part of the book forever. They like to surprise their friend or their enemy by sending me a picture of their face, and I put the face in the book and they could give the book as a gift. So that's something that always runs out within the first few days. So that's something that people definitely want to grab if they want that spot. The first books, I don't know how long to talk about it, but the first book is on evolution. That excites me the most. It's called The Story of Life.
Yeah.
Then we wrote a book on mythology and critical thinking called Oh, the Things We Believe. The third book is on the Big Bang and how we're all made of stardust. The fourth book is entitled What Happens When We Die. which is actually a big risk that I took. People really were asking for a book on death from a secular perspective.
Right.
And that is our most popular book. People love that book, and I'm more proud of that book than any book I've done out of the 6 so far. The 5th book is called Sapiens, Our Human Evolution, about how we all came from Africa and descended from Lucy, basically. Australopithecus afarensis, I think, is the scientific name.
Sure.
And then the 6th book is called, it's satirically called, This World Was Made for Me. And it goes through, it tells the evolution story through the mass extinctions and shows us through those mass extinctions how we're so lucky to be here and privileged to be here. And the world does not belong to us, but we belong to it. And we have to respect it and really appreciate it and the small opportunity we get to be here. And those are our 6 titles so far.
And, of course, this makes lucky number 7.
That's right. That's right. Oh, my gods. We're doing it.
One book for each level of heaven. That's nice. Dante would be proud. Well, another Italian tie. How's that?
There you go. There you go. You know, yesterday was my birthday, and for my birthday, I got a negative review on one of my books. And I was kind of disappointed about it. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you just mentioned Dante.
Yeah.
Dante saved me from feeling bad about that review because I saw someone gave Dante's Inferno a 1-star review, and the reason was too many Italian names and places.
Oh, wow. I have read Dante, and it's a funny thing because when I've read it, it has footnotes, and some pages, the footnotes are more than the actual text of the story because there's so much to explain. I could see why someone would get stuck there, but yeah. So there's a limited number of pictures, and I'm looking at this here. Book dedication. You can actually have the book dedicated to you or a loved one, and there's one of those. Is that right?
Yes, just one.
Oh,
yes, because we. You know, I really want to make that special and write in very large print on the first page that this book is dedicated to that person, whoever purchases that reward or chooses, that person gets to choose a name. And I didn't want to make the kind of water it down and dilute it with a lot of people. So people could still get their name in the acknowledgement section. That we have, maybe 100 or 200 spots. But for the dedication, I wanted to make it special. So, yeah, we have that.
And I thought there was one here where you got a copy of every book in the set. Yeah, here it is. The entire A&A series, Annabelle and Aiden, 7 titles. And the funny thing is that for this level, actually, you would have to pay almost that same amount on Amazon to get the 6 books plus the 7th one. And here, of course, you get some extra perks and stuff. But these promotions, I don't know how you're going to make enough money to provide all this stuff, but it's great. It gets the books out there, so that's cool.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
We love our supporters. We always get a lot of support, so we're really hoping for that because this is the first time we're doing this in 2 years, so we really are hoping for a lot of support.
Yeah, I can't wait to get my hand on a copy, and I have a couple of the other ones from when we talked last year. They are all gorgeous. They are all totally readable to a small child. I mean, I'm even talking about like 1 and 2, just because of the poetry, the rhyming, and the I don't know if it'll sound negative, sing-songy. It's rhythmic. So it'll help you read a small child to sleep. And if you get a child that can read some, 7 or 8, they can read it to you as the parent. And maybe as they get a little bit older, they can read the whole thing themselves and have just some nice quiet time thinking about how the world works. So great. Is there anything else we should know about the book? How to go contribute? What else do my listeners need to know?
That's about it. I mean, some people don't really know how Kickstarter works. They might not have used it before. So
Sure.
In short, you're really just pre-ordering the book, and you're getting a discount on it. You are getting special perks like getting your name in the book, getting your face in the book. So, yeah, users could just go to ohmygodsthebook.com, check out the rewards. There's a fun little 3-minute video about me and my kids and my book series. And, I hope we could all do this together and support not just me, but support scientific literacy in the next generation, because I think it's needed now more than ever.
And I was going to ask you, who made that video?
I did.
No,
I spent many hours.
Okay, because it's really good.
Thank you.
I was watching that and I thought, who did he hire to make this? But you did that on your own. I'm impressed.
Yeah, it's becoming a children's book author, you think, oh, I'll write some books, and then later, I'll sell a little. Writing the books is about 10% of the job, and 90% of the job is marketing and learning, how to make graphics and how to use social media and Facebook ads and Amazon ads and printing and Chinese printers and American printers and file formatting and video editing.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Well, maybe someday you'll get picked up by one of these ginormous book companies. I think they still exist, don't they? And they'll give you
they do.
Maybe they'll give you $1 million for all the rights. What do you think?
That would be nice. On the other hand, I'm not going to lie and say I would turn that down, $1 million. However, I do enjoy that it's just kind of me and my readers. I feel like there's a connection, and I wouldn't want a company taking creative control. I like what we're doing. I think it's important for children to be exposed to certain things in certain ways, and I love my readers so much, because every now and then, if it's been 6 months or a year, and sometimes I wonder, is there still anyone out there? Does anyone care that I'm doing this? Each Kickstarter, I have to say, is also a personal testament of should I continue doing this. It's a litmus test. It's really me kind of putting my toes in the water of the world and saying, are we still doing this? And every single time so far, all of my supporters have come through. People love the books. They send me pictures of their kids reading it. They tell me stories of what their kids learned or the silly, funny things that their kids are doing now from the books, like touching their tailbone at school and talking about where it came from. So it's just kind of a small community of people, I feel like, that we've created. So that's something that I wouldn't want anything to get in the way of.
I like it. I'm just looking at some of the reviews, and I'm not going to read them all, but you have comments from my good friend Cara Santa Maria, Pin Gillette.
Yeah.
I mean, Pin's not a friend, but I've met him a couple times. Bill Nye, very cool. Nice reviews here. Absolutely. And when does this book? So, I mean, people can go to Kickstarter now. As soon as they hear the show, they can even pause and go over there and donate. But when do they get a copy?
So August or September, hopefully. That's what we're hoping.
Yeah.
I like to under-promise and over-deliver, so it might be a lot sooner than that. But we're looking at August.
How awesome would this be for Christmas presents for some young kids, either your own or a niece and nephew or grandkids or something like that? You put in a few bucks, you sneak one of the pictures to JR here through the Kickstarter, and then you give these books to the kids for Christmas. And they open them up, they have a fun time, they read through it, and then they get to find their own face in the book. That's so freaking cool, I can hardly take it.
Oh, yeah, and better just don't even tell them their faces there. Just read it to them and kind of look through that last page. Oh, we're at this part. Wait. Do you recognize anybody here?
That sounds fantastic. Well, JR, thank you so much. Hopefully a few listeners, hopefully many listeners, will go over there, kick in some money, get some books or copies or multiple books, signed books. Everybody, there's probably 20 different levels that are here, are available. Read through them all, see what you like the best, donate some money for a good cause. Like you said, pre-buy the book. And hopefully we can get this one off the ground too. And I love what you're doing. Thank you very much for doing these. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come visit me, on the show to tell all my listeners about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
A lot of people come up here and they thank Jesus for this award. I want you to know that no one had less to do with this award than Jesus. He didn't help me a bit. If it was up to him, Caesar Milan would be up here with that damn dog. So all I can say is, suck it, Jesus. This award is my God now.
Of course, I am delighted that you are still here listening to the cleverly titled The Phil Ferguson Show. Thank you very much for being here. And of course, go to Kickstarter and make your contribution, show your support for this brand new book from the Annabelle and Aiden series. And you'll get your books and or pictures or whatever before Christmas. And you can get a whole bunch of these books and give them to all kinds of kids. Put them in your local libraries. I don't care if you even read it, but you have to pay for it so that artists can make more stuff like this. Because if the industry sees successful ways to make money selling books to secular folks, atheists, agnostics, freethinkers, whatever, books that cover ancient religions and science, then they're more likely to support, underwrite, help other people do more books like this. So you can go do that. If you like the show and you want to say thanks for this, there's a couple things you can do for me. One is go to Apple Podcasts or Stitcher and give a 5-star review. I would appreciate that very much. I haven't been reading them lately. Maybe I'll go check to see if there's some new ones. The other thing, of course, on patreon.com/Phil, you can become a patron of the Phil Ferguson Show. And while this show is finally one that's under an hour, often they are an hour 10, hour and 20. I think last one was an hour and 40. I just had all this stuff that I wanted to share with you. So hopefully you found something useful here. And of course, hopefully you learned something about the dangers of picking highly recommended 5-star rated funds and how looking at the history just does not work. And the interesting, amazing fund from Standpoint that is mostly them going out and buying incredibly low-cost index funds and putting them together in a package and then charging you 2.3% expense ratio. And it makes me think, maybe I'm doing this all wrong. Maybe I should open my own mutual fund and I just put the Polaris plan in this mutual fund, and instead of doing it for free here, and instead of having customers pay me for it, I could go international with this fund and just rake in tens of millions of dollars, charging 2.5-3% expense ratio on a fund that basically repackages index funds. It does take some oversized stones or oversized ovaries, I guess, to make a fund like this. It really, really did kind of inspire me with the cleverness of it, the endless ways that the man can take money from the average investor through clever product design, trickery, and not in this case necessarily, but in other cases through deceit and fraud. Who knows? But when I started this show, I was afraid that after 20 or 30 episodes, I would run out of weird things and or scammy things and or bad investments to talk about. But this, of course, is show 374. So I still get new stuff that I've never seen shows up. It's just absolutely amazing. So thank you for listening. If you don't have enough money to go to Patreon, that's cool. Leave the 5-star review. If you do either one of those things, you could still recommend the show to a friend so that when we do fundraisers or opportunities to invest in the future of a rational world, like today's show with the Annabelle and Aiden brand new book, Oh My Gods, you can participate in that and just kick in a few bucks and help out the world. Go a little bit more towards sanity and rationality. I think we need that. So, once again, I hope that we get past all this coronavirus shit late spring, early summer of 21, and we can start having conferences of some kind, even if they're spaced out and we all wear our masks. But, we'll work with what we have to. Hope to see you out there on the road somewhere soon. Until then, ciao.
Protozoa is my name, I'm just a single cell. I'm sorry that I have no proof, perhaps it's just as well, of my beginning back in time when from a glob of goo supposedly I started things, the end of which is you. For untold centuries I thought that all was going well. Then I became dissatisfied as just a single cell. My fortitude, my guts and grit would stand me in good stead. I made this as my final goal, to be a quadruped. I had to take it step by step and over centuries. But that was nothing, for I knew I'd turn out as I pleased. Ambition surged within my cell down in my gloppy bog. By protozoa and effort I became a pollywog. Evolution, the science of confusion. Because of all the missing links, they don't know what to do. Evolution, incredible delusion. They tell us that we started out as just a glob of goo. For umpteen million years or so, I wriggled all about, encumbered by my stupid tail, then fins began to sprout. Or was it legs I next acquired? Really, I forget. With evolution in control, you don't know what you'll get. My patient waiting bore much fruit, as happens without fail. I changed into a reeking ape with teeth and hair and tail. It was such fun to be an ape. I loved to swing from trees. Oh, I loved to munch bananas, and I loved to scratch for fleas. I howled at all my comrades, and I gibbered at the moon. And little did I know that all my carefree days were doomed. Millions of long years went past, and then a million more. And suddenly I noticed that my tail was feeling sore. Well, it dropped off and my hair fell out. Old Darwin strikes again. I was a jolly ape, but now I turned into a man. Would you believe I started out as just a glob of goo, and changed from fish to bird to ape and ended up as you? That theory is, as theories go, rather odd and weird. The truth, however, is a lot less complex than you feared. If you, my friends, will listen on, you'll find the whole true story, in which there's somewhat less of goo and rather more of glory. Evolution, the science of confusion. Because of all the missing